Today is about drama, the drama of John the Baptist. Or is it about John the Baptist? John the Baptist is a dramatic figure, a figure of strength, a true prophet of old, one whose voice cuts through the mess and the nonsense of this world, one who speaks truth to power and thus pays with his life, because the powerful leaders of his time cannot bear to be called out, to be revealed for who they truly are. Advent is a dramatic season. It's one that has wonderfully powerful readings and music which reflect dramatic themes, the end of times, anticipation, promises and prophecies being fulfilled, the history of the world being changed forever because of what is to come. It's a rich mix with a message that is so crucial to the world today. To stay focused on God's way and not to be overcome by the false dramas of the world around us. In a world facing wars and an environmental crisis, wars and a crisis that have arisen because of human greed, ignorance, stubbornness, wars and an environmental catastrophe that threatens us with the collapse, ecological collapse, and collapse of society and humanity, and perhaps the end of the world as we know it, even in our own lifetime. A political landscape that is dominated by dishonesty, by lies, by abuse of power, abuse of trust, and seeks to stoke divisions in society rather than bring people together. Well, in this dramatic world, humanity desperately needs to be reminded of what John the Baptist's message was all about. So here we arrive at the third Sunday of Advent in this dramatic mix, as we move ever towards the celebrating of Christ's coming, God who is with us. In this dramatic mix, John's message points us to two important things: to rejoice and to challenge, and to sit with our doubts. So in what can we rejoice, you may ask, particularly with what's going on in the world around us at the moment? Well, the words we hear from Isaiah give us a wonderful image of life with God being one that is transformative, and that God comes to the aid of those who are afflicted. But it's a message about future hope rather than present reality, as we are probably all too aware. However, this future hope can still be the cause of our rejoicing now, because we can rejoice that amidst the hardships and the harshness of this world, God has promised consolation. We may not know what this will look like or when it will be, but the promise itself on its own is enough. But as we move on to our second lesson, rejoicing comes with caution. Rejoice, but don't get carried away. For in this second reading, we are warned not to get ahead of ourselves as we eagerly anticipate Christ's coming. We have to be patient and look to the prophets as an example. They suffered, yet held firm. Just because we have faith does not mean that bad things won't happen or that we can escape the horrors of this world. What we're called to do is to hold fast in our faith and to patiently wait upon God. Last Sunday, the second Sunday of Advent, in our Gospel reading, we had our first instalment of the drama where John the Baptist takes centre stage, boldly and confidently proclaiming the coming of God's kingdom, the coming of Jesus. Crowds flock to him in the desert. His preaching is forceful, direct, and that which befits a prophet. The sense of his strength is palpable. But in our readings this week, in our second instalment of John the Baptist in Advent, John cuts a very different figure, because today he seems weak. He is doubting and questioning, and at this point in the drama, he is a political prisoner. John has been arrested for speaking out against Herod Antipas, the son of King Herod that we hear a lot about in the Christmas story. Imprisoned and alone, and at the end of his life, John seems to doubt, because Jesus' deeds seem to be very different from what John had proclaimed they would be. And so he sends his messengers to Jesus to find out the truth. Who was John doubting? Was it himself, or was it Jesus? It's not quite clear, but what we see is that John's doubt points us to the truth. He points us to how we can cope with doubt, that doubt that we may have because we want things to get better in our lifetime, the doubts we can have in our faith because the horrific things we see in the world around us make God seem so far away. But what we see is that it's because of his challenges that his doubt comes. We see that Jesus affirms John truly is a prophet, and therefore we see John and Jesus for who they really are. John, the one who points the way, and Jesus, the one who is the way. When the disciples of John come to Jesus, Jesus does not answer them directly, but quotes Isaiah. We see that Matthew in his Gospel emphasizes that Jesus is the Messiah promised in the Old Testament, the theme that goes throughout Matthew's Gospel. But Jesus does not reproach John for having doubts. The messengers are simply to go back to John and tell them what they have seen Jesus do, that Jesus' deeds speak for themselves. So John's actions point us to important truths. We must challenge the injustice and the greed in the world around us. We must speak truth to the political powers that be, however hard that may be. But, as John did, we must act with honesty and integrity. We must keep questioning, but in our questioning and in our doubts, know that this will lead us to a deeper truth of God who is revealed to us. And above all, in the horrors of this world, we must never allow ourselves to be overcome and to forget to rejoice in God and in the hope that we have been promised. So today is indeed about the drama of John the Baptist, but it's the drama that reveals the truth of who Jesus is to us, the one who gives us cause to rejoice, but the one who reveals the world for what it truly is, the world in need of redemption. Amen.